Thank you.
Nice.
Yep, no problem. No, I was telling Tom, I was like, it's one of those things like everybody knows that this is how it's done. So am I missing
Yeah.
something? Am
That's
I
how
an
you
idiot
feel,
not
yeah.
finding it?
No.
It's like, I can't find it anywhere. I mean, I checked, you know, like secondary sources and additional
Yeah.
statutes, statute, I checked cases that cite the statute. I don't want to talk about it.
Good. Perfect.
Yeah. It's not even in, we even checked the rules that we're amending. And in the rules that we're amending, it says you can't introduce and pass it on the same day, but it doesn't say anything about.
Okay, I should be live. Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, will do. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, silent. Yeah.
I'll be ringing and
You'll have to arrest yourself.
I'll sit my two away.
Bring me a pizza.
Huh? I can't make anything yet. Live. It'll be a while. We're live.
He's back in the coroner's office wanted something else, so I just gave him. I
Oh,
figured
yeah,
they
thank
wouldn't
you.
have let him in if it wasn't him.
Yeah,
so.
and then, is it Adam?
He didn't say.
Oh, okay. That's fine. That's who usually picks it up. Thank you.
That's kind of like a cemetery slash pop look to him.
Process.
Yeah.
I just sent her the
Get that.
picture.
Yeah.
You said,
Okay.
"Well, so needs a haircut."
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He's fine. Yeah, I think his biggest concern right now is his dog doesn't knock him over.
Yeah,
It's all over him, Morgan.
Running around the house.
See that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he would be so mad. I think so.
You write all of us. You were all of them.
Yeah.
It may, but it looks like it's brown. Yeah, just. Yeah. I put your bag up there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Big audience today. Oh yeah, camera's on. You gotta be careful. Not that we would ever. Yeah. talk loud. Yeah, mics are on.
And do my part remember here.
Okay.
I'm not gonna-
Oh, no, you gotta stand up, you gotta approach the bench, you gotta do the whole song, and you gotta be the view of the camera.
Just like you're upstairs in court.
We're putting on a show.
This is your time.
This is the second most watched government meeting in Lawrence County.
Wait, who beat us?
Newcastle. City Council.
everybody.
Mullet's coming in nicely.
Yeah.
And everybody needs it.
Yeah.
I know,
everybody's
that's it.
like,
My
yeah.
son was like, oh,
I know.
I was like, thankfully it's
Yeah, it's everybody.
Camera's on. Okay. Sarah, how's everything in the sheriff's office?
Doing all right.
Hanging in there?
There's not a whole lot going on right now, you know what I mean? So,
You guys bring anyone else back to work? Other than that initial,
no.
there's all like,
No.
what, 5 sheriffs working or something like that?
There's like 8 of us, right? So,
Hey, are you guys doing any transports between?
well, now they're all shut off, basically.
So there are
So
no
there you can't,
prisoners
yeah.
going back.
State prisons, you can't take anybody now.
What about the other counties?
Some of the counties are doing the same thing too.
So even if somebody's charges, like, let's say, Center County are over, you guys can't go and pick them up and bring them?
If the county's saying no pickup,
Yeah?
yeah.
See, I keep forgetting my packet early. I forgot.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. So we have a couple of viewers.
We're going to work.
Okay, good.
Right.
We're good to go, we're recording?
Yep.
Ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
All right, we will call this April 14th, 2020 meeting of the Lawrence County Commissioners to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief moment of silence. Carrie, would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. I try to pick the most unsuspecting person each meeting to do the pledge.
You did.
He got you.
You got me last week, Carrie.
Me the week before.
All right, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel,
Here.
Commissioner Vogler.
Here.
Commissioner Boyd.
Here. We have a quorum. I will note that anybody that wishes to make public comment for any matter for consideration before the Board of Commissioners may do so via email. They can email their comment to mboyd@co.lawrence.pa.us. That's mboyd@co.lawrence.pa.us. Assuming it's not vulgar, we will read it aloud here, either at the initial public comment section at the beginning of the meeting, or if we don't receive it until the end, we have a second public comment section at the end. That being said, I will note this meeting is being live streamed, which we are meeting all requirements right now of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act based on guidance from the Office of Open Records, for the situation that we're in with COVID-19. No row officer Ellis Perry, do you have any report?
No,
All right.
not at all.
Public comments, I will check my email. Tell you there weren't any when I left. Oh, we have, this might be one. All right, we might have ours first.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's an email from the Human Services Center. I got excited. All right, moving online. Again, if anybody wants to make a public comment, send them to envoy@co.lawrence.pa.us. We'll read them at the end. Moving down to fiscal and contractual, we have our warrant register for April 12th, 2020. I will give my colleagues a minute to look that over and then take a motion to accept the warrant register with a quick one.
I will move.
And I was able to look it over earlier, so I'll offer the second.
All right. We have motion to second. Only thing I'll say is the reason it looks to be so thick is we have a whole bunch of names of individuals on this list. And just based on the sheer volume of them, I'd be willing to bet they're all the individuals who have foster kids
Yes.
with our children and youth services.
Right.
Who receive a stipend that we get through the state of Pennsylvania for the Commonwealth. But that being said, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Warrant register accepted. Up next, we have approval of the April 7th, 2020 minutes. Again, I will give my colleagues a minute to look over the minutes, and then I will take a motion for approval.
I will move to approve the minutes.
And I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to proclamations and certificates. We do have a proclamation, and I'll read it aloud and then give a brief detail. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But the proclamation is as stated, whereas a novel coronavirus known as COVID-19 emerged in Wuhan, China and began infecting humans in December of 2019, and whereas COVID-19 has spread to multiple countries, including the United States of America, and whereas the World Health Organization has declared COVID-19 to be a pandemic, and whereas on March 6, 2020, the governor of Pennsylvania issued a proclamation of disaster emergency, and whereas on March 13, 2020, the President of the United States declared a national emergency, and whereas on March 17, 2020, the Lawrence County Board of Commissioners issued a proclamation of disaster emergency, and whereas on March 19, 2020, the governor of Pennsylvania ordered all non-life-sustaining businesses in Pennsylvania to close physical locations, and whereas on March 31st, 2020, the governor of Pennsylvania issued a stay-at-home order for all residents of Lawrence County, and whereas the governor of Pennsylvania has defined life-sustaining and non-life-sustaining businesses and employees, and whereas life-sustaining employees are required to perform job duties considered essential, including functions which require prolonged interaction with members of the public or infected individuals across Pennsylvania, and whereas essential employees are on the front line of the fight against COVID-19, and whereas the Lawrence County Board of Commissioners desires to recognize and commend all Lawrence County essential employees, now therefore be it resolved by the Lawrence County Board of Commissioners, the month of May 2020 is hereby deemed as COVID-19 Frontline Employee Month in Lawrence County, Pennsylvania, in recognition of those individuals who are selflessly working to promote the public good and help us contain and fight the spread of COVID-19. I think it's important that we recognize those individuals who are going to work every day to make sure we're safe. But that being said, just for formality, I'll take a motion in a second, then I'll open up to comments.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion in a second, are there any comments? All right, we will take a roll call vote on this. We have a motion in a second. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May 2020 is now COVID-19 Frontline Employee Month in Lawrence County. I'll note we would have made it April, but April's 311 Digger Month.
Yes, there we go.
Up next, we have staff reports. A member of staff is with us today, probably because there are very few members of staff in the building.
Correct.
We have commissioner reports and comments up next, and today we'll start with Commissioner Vogler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no comments today.
Okay. Up next is myself. The only thing I want to note is there was an article in the Elwood City Ledger yesterday where a data company called Unicast, they compiled a whole bunch of mobility data for all the counties across the state of Pennsylvania, and they ranked those counties based on the mobility of their residents. Unfortunately, based on their mobility index, this company decided to give Lawrence County an F rating in mobility, meaning that we still have, compared to our baseline, a large number of residents traveling around the county. Now, I want to note that residents should limit their non-essential travel, but I do want to note there are a couple of reasons that I would have an issue with a baseline measurement, a letter grade measurement from any data company anywhere. First and foremost is that right now we're not seeing Lawrence County as an epicenter for the virus. Our rate of infection here is not greater than the rest of the state. We're not seeing any municipality or the county itself become a hotbed for the virus, which means that even though we might still have residents traveling around, they're traveling around solitarily. They're not spreading the virus to a greater extent than we're seeing around the state. Number two, the data does not take into account the reason that people are traveling. It doesn't differentiate between someone driving around the county on their own, like I've done at least 16 times in the past 2 days, or someone, for example, checking in on an elderly neighbor or elderly family member. Doesn't differentiate that from people who might be going to, a house party or hanging out with friends or going to, an activity that's not recommended or following guidelines from the CDC or Department of Health. And number three, that data is actually compared to a baseline from before COVID-19. So in Lawrence County specifically, we have a large elderly population and have a higher than average unemployment rate, which are both factors that would contribute to a low baseline for mobility, right? We don't have as many people, for example, as Beaver County that are traveling to and from work every day. We don't have nearly as many people as Allegheny County. Just to highlight this point, there are 8,000 current employees working at the Beaver County cracker plant. That construction is shut down, which means in Beaver County, they're seeing 8,000 less trips. Actually, if you want to get technical, they're seeing 16,000 less trips because people traveling to and from that cracker plant, which would artificially inflate Beaver County's grade and artificially deflate our grade relative to the rest of the state. There are, as of 2015, 28,855 jobs in Lawrence County, according to the United States Census. That's 28%, those 8,000 people would be 28% of our entire workforce. Just to touch on this one last thing, in 2017, there were 1,980 people that lived in Pittsburgh Central Business District. There were 82,138 people working in Pittsburgh's downtown Central Business District. Those people are no longer commuting into Pittsburgh. Right. They're no longer traveling to their jobs. And as a result, again, you're seeing the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County's numbers are artificially inflated in terms of getting a better grade, and ours deflated. I don't put much stock in letter grade statistical analysis from a data company that's only tracking mobility for mobility's sake. I don't put much stock when you're comparing the different baselines from different counties across Pennsylvania. Again, I do think it's important that people stay home. But in terms of what we're doing here on the ground in Lawrence County, our medical systems are not overwhelmed. We're not seeing an influx of the virus here, and we have the supplies that we need to weather this.
What's the name of this company?
They are called Unicast.
I thought that non-essential businesses were supposed to be closed during this time. That's all I'll say.
Boom.
Where's the mic drop?
Great clarification, yes.
But that's all I have to say today. Commissioner Spielvogel, you're on deck next.
Thank you. I just, again, two things very quickly. 211 is the number to call if you're experiencing any type of difficulties during this pandemic, and take the time to fill out your census, because more so than ever right now, those dollars that are coming into Lawrence County from the census tracts will help in next year, the year after, the year after, and the year after. Everything that's going on and happening now, the ripple effect of what this pandemic is going to leave in Lawrence County, those dollars, again, coming from the census, that are measured to the percentages that we get will be very, very important. So please fill out that census form. It may not seem like a lot now, but in the future, it's going to be very important because we do have a huge ripple effect that will happen from this pandemic. That's it. Thank you.
You've been following the census closely. Do you know, how are we doing relative to the rest of the state?
Well,
reporting?
Congratulations to Lawrence County. We are doing better than the state average and better than the national average. So we are definitely right in there in the mix. We get the updates on it. Let's continue to get that good grade for Lawrence County, right? Forget about that other company. Let's just continue to put our census tracks in there, whether you do it on the phone or online, or if you got something in the mail. Go ahead and do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business, we have 3 resolutions on the table and our first transfer of funds for the year. First item of new business is resolution and discussion for possible approval of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act opt-out for the Lawrence County Jail, emergency management personnel, 911 operators, child welfare workers, and other public health personnel. The only thing I'll note on this, and then our assistant solicitor can fill in any gaps that I might have. I see her eyes getting wide right now, putting her on the spot. But the general gist of this is that the Family First Act allows employers to provide an opt-out for those employees who are considered essential to perform necessary public health and public welfare functions. The act requires that the employer actually go forth and put, in our case, a resolution forward that opts out those employees. Now, our employees that we have working in the jail, our employees that we have working at CYS, at Mental Health and Developmental Services, and at our 911 center are essential to the public good in this time. We cannot, under any circumstance, have a lack of staffing at the jail. We can't have a lack of staffing at our 911 center, and we can't have a lack of staffing when the welfare of children and those individuals who are mentally disabled might depend on their lives for it. And so it is for that reason that we are exempting those employees from the provisions of this act, specifically those provisions relating to, under the act, required paid time off. If, for example, they would have a child who is out of school and are searching for access to daycare. Unfortunately, regardless of the situation, we need those employees to be at the jail, at 911, at CYS or MHDS fulfilling the essential mental health functions. Those functions can't stop. I do want to note that the Board of Commissioners has put together a policy where if an employee of one of those 4 agencies contracts COVID-19 or is medically quarantined, the board will compensate that employee and pay them for a 14-day period as per CDC and DOH guidelines. Again, it's crucial that while we make sure that our employees are safe, that we continue to provide essential public health functions.
Yes.
The only other thing I want to note is that under the Family First Act, it promises in the form of a tax credit, federal reimbursement for any employee who takes 14 days of leave or however many days of leave they're permitted to take under the act for private companies. The legal consensus right now is that that will not apply for government entities. In other words, while we are still mandated under the act, had we not passed this resolution to provide for employees to take 14 days if they need to become self-quarantined, we will not receive a reimbursement in the form of a tax credit like a normal company would. That's basically, I think that's pretty much the gist of it. But yeah, this again, just to stress, exempts our 911 operators, our MHDS, our CYS, and our prison workers from the provisions of the Family First Act. And that being said, if they do get coronavirus, that unfortunate situation, if a family member of theirs does contract COVID-19 and they are forced to medically quarantine themselves, the commissioners have already set up a policy where we will allow them to do that. That being said, am I missing anything, Attorney Flannery?
Mr. Chairman, just noting a couple additional facts. Number one, that this applies to the personnel that have already been deemed essential by their respective department heads. So it's the people who continued to work after the courthouse was shut down, number one. Number two, The county solicitor and I have been following this law. I was reaching out to our federal representatives as soon as we heard that it had been signed into law. We have been following the information provided by the United States Department of Labor and the guidance that they provide on the interpretation and application of this statute. And the language in today's resolution mirrors the language from the U.S. Department of Labor as well.
Okay, thank you. So
Thank
just
you.
to reiterate, everything we're doing is coming not from even the State Department of Labor and Industry, but the United States Department of Labor and Industry as it relates to the act. So we are following to the T the guidelines and regulations as set forth by the Department of Labor. Any other comments from my fellow commissioners?
No.
All right, we will make that, assuming no objection, resolution 2020-071.
071.
Up next, we have a resolution for discussion and possible approval of adopting policies for county employees during the coronavirus pandemic. The commissioners, just on the virtue of it being a national, state, and local emergency, had implemented a number of these policies before it came to this resolution. However, we wanted to have an official on-the-record document solidifying all policies that we have in place to make sure that we are on absolute 100% sure legal footing for these policies and procedures. And I'll read the following policies and procedures that are in this. If you want to read them, there is right now a board packet, a board document on the county's website under the commissioners section. So we're adopting the following. 1, all county employees deemed non-essential by the row officer or department head as of March 19th are not to report to work effective March 20th, 2020. All county employees receive full pay for March 20, 2020. Essential employees who were required to work on March 20th also receive 1 comp day, and that's to offset any unfairness that might stem from an involuntary layoff, which this was. Effective March 23rd, non-essential employees are permitted to utilize any combination of sick, vacation, or personal time until called back to work, or that employee may elect to apply for unemployment benefits. Number 3, all additional county employees, this pertains to the second layoff, additional county employees deemed non-essential by the row officer or department heads as of March 26, 2020, are not to report to work effective March 27th. Said employees will receive full pay for March 27th. Essential employees who are required to work on March 27th will receive a comp day, with the exception of employees in essential departments, including corrections, the coroner's office, children and youth services, mental health and developmental services, and the Lawrence County Emergency Operations Center. Effective March 30th, the additional non-essential employees are permitted to utilize any combination of sick, personal, and vacation time until called back to work, or said employees may elect to apply for unemployment benefits. 5, all employees, whether using sick, personal, or vacation time, or those who apply for unemployment benefits, will continue to receive their health care benefits until called back to work. The county will pay the employee contribution for the health care benefits until that employee is called back to work. We believe that's just a moral imperative. You don't take people off their health insurance during a global pandemic. Perfect attendance bonus requirements are waived effective March 20th, 2020 until the county is no longer under a declaration of disaster emergency. Those perfect attendance bonus is incorporated into each of our union contracts, and as a result, our non-union employees are also extended perfect attendance bonuses. Again, we do not want an involuntary layoff, which the employee had no discretion and no authority, to enter into that layoff. We don't want them adversely impacted by something that was out of their control. Number 7, all employees who are using sick, vacation, or personal time as of April 10th will receive full pay for that holiday. All employees who are receiving unemployment benefits as of April 10th will receive a comp day upon their return to work. Again, that's something that's built into the union contracts. The final day to use carryover vacation days has been moved from April 1st, 2020 until June 30th, 2020. The rationale for that is that, again, you have employees who are laid off who would otherwise not be able to use any rolled over vacation days that they have accumulated. Our court system has extended its state of emergency until May 31st of 2020, which means right now we can expect the courthouse to remain closed until May 31st, 2020. This gives our employees the additional month they would not have otherwise had to utilize any vacation rollover days. 9, any essential employee, whether or not they have been exempted from the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act or the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, who has a medical notice that he or she is in quarantine, is waiting to receive a COVID-19 test, or is waiting for the results of a COVID-19 test, or receive pay for the duration of his or her quarantine or waiting period. I think we explained that in the last resolution. All employees employed by Lawrence County as of March 20th, 2020 will be rehired or called back to work at the end of this declaration of disaster emergency. All employees employed as of March 20th, 2020 shall continue to accumulate sick, vacation, and personal days regardless of any layoff status. Again, that relates back to this was out of the employee's individual control, and we don't want to penalize them for an event that was out of their control. All policies stated above are declared by this resolution shall remain in effect until the termination of the present declaration of disaster emergency or until further resolved by the Board of Commissioners, but in no case shall any of the policies apply after December 31st, 2020. Okay. Are there any comments from my fellow commissioners?
I have a couple questions for the Assistant Solicitor, if I'm in order to do so.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Flannery, thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
Under item 1 on page 1 is reference to row officer or department head. Does the term row officer apply to the president, judge / courts for purposes of this resolution?
I would normally say that the court is not a row officer. It's a separate entity. And I apologize, I don't have a copy in front of me.
Well, that being the case, if that's your interpretation, then what we're doing here would then only apply to departments that report to the commissioners. And in this case, if you're defining row officers as every other elected official except the president judge, if that's how you're defining this, then this resolution, if I'm not mistaken, then would not be applicable to the courts or any of their employees. Am I correct?
That could very well be correct, and it may be the best practice for the president judge to follow up this resolution with any decree of his own regarding court employees that he's in charge of.
Well, and forgive me for splitting hairs then. You're saying that it would be up to the president judge to make the determination as it relates to the employees that ultimately report to him.
As this resolution is worded, correct, because
Okay.
he's not a row officer and he's not a department head.
But then, that being the case, since we are including the row officers in this, do they not have similar type authority as it relates to their employees as the president judge does?
I think it's not the same, because there's a division between the executive branch, which the commissioners are in charge of and the row officers are a part of, and the judicial branch, which the president judge is in charge of here in Lawrence County.
But am I not mistaken that the elected row officers do not report to the county commissioners, other than the relationship as it relates to the budget?
Correct. I mean, they report to you, they provide you information. You are in charge of the executive branch, save the powers reserved to those row officers. But in terms of whether the court has a similar standing to a row officer, I don't believe that they do. They are a separate branch of our government.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm wondering then, since if I'm hearing you correctly, that this resolution would not apply to any employee of county government who ultimately reports to the president judge, I think as a courtesy at least, we should get this document in the judge's hands as soon as possible so that he is aware of the action we most likely will be taking here. Secondly, on number 7 on page 2, all employees who are using sick, personal, or vacation time as of April 10, 2020 will receive full pay for that holiday, should we add language for purposes of precision, noting that that holiday in fact was Good Friday? Or is that just implied by this sentence?
I omitted the basis for the holiday and simply went by the date and the fact that the county has designated it so without reference to any religious reason.
That's fine, but I don't mind stating that that's Good Friday is a county holiday. I mean, that's been the tradition, and that's what we do. We give our employees Good Friday off. And but if you're comfortable that sentence is specific to that particular day, so am I to understand? And please don't take this the wrong way, but if this holiday happened to be Memorial Day, would we not have said Memorial Day then?
We just thought it was best to omit the specific religious reference in our government resolution.
I appreciate that, but I think for the record, Good Friday is a county holiday. So thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Would you like to amend the resolution to include Good Friday?
No, I'm okay with how she's written it.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Commissioner Spielvogel, any comments?
I would just, back to number 1. Do we have the authority to just include and all courts?
Forgive me. It's probably a good thing that Mr. Acabone entered the room, and we were just discussing this proposed resolution, number 72, in its proposed form, and it discusses various steps that have been taken by the commissioners since the declaration of this emergency. And my question to Attorney Flannery was that on page 1, item 1, it references row officers and department heads. And my question was, do the courts fall under the definition of row officer? And the attorney indicated that that would not be the case.
Right.
Which, since we're not using the word court anywhere in this proposal, I would interpret that to be that what we're doing here would not be applicable to the courts, which then leads to Commissioner Spielvogel's question. And I'll back off and let her take it from there.
If I could just say something quickly here, because I'm not sure how much of this is impacted with what I have to say, but Judge Motto just did that extension of the judicial emergency. He's explaining it to me that what he's doing is not extending what is actually happening right now with our essential staff and the closure. He's just extending it to include the trial term. So what he's saying is his order right now, all that it does is it'll extend the trial term to the end of May. What he's waiting for is to hear if the Supreme Court will extend the essential staff and the closure and what the commissioners will be doing as far as the courthouse goes. So I think a lot of people misinterpreted that, including myself, because I'm thinking this means that he's extending this to the end of May, meaning the courts are going to be basically closed except for emergencies. Right now, he's saying that that's not the case. He's saying as of May 1st, we will be open as business as usual for the courts unless he hears something from you guys or from the Supreme Court. So I just wanted to make that clarification because we talked about this a little bit this morning, and I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. But as far as this is concerned, I think, yes, you should probably use some kind of language.
Just include the court personnel, court employees, or.
And here's what that could do, that shores us up on the commissioner's front if we need to enact anything.
Right.
And if Judge Motto and court administration follow up with their own document, that way, no matter what the law is, we're in good standing.
And maybe you could say this includes the, all court staff with set approval by President Judge Dominic Motto. This way, you know, then, like you said, he could follow up with something just saying, yes, I agree to that, you know, that would include.
And I'd be comfortable with that. Now, I
Okay,
think it's our solicitor had to take a phone call.
right, okay,
But perhaps if she gives the green light, I'd be very agreeable to amending the proposed resolution. But that's assuming you're comfortable with the language that's in there.
Yes, yeah, and I talked to the judge a little bit about that already because we are talking about this upcoming Friday too. Is that what? Yeah, and he was fine with that, and he actually asked me to come and talk to you guys about that. So
so we could maybe amend it to include, row officer or department head, comma, all court personnel
Pending the approval.
pending, or even, you know, amended to include all personnel pending, acceptance, acknowledgement of President Judge Dominic Motto.
yes,
All right,
that's perfect. Yeah.
For the word approval.
Yeah.
Approval. Approval.
Would you be able to make that in the form of a motion to amend the
Okay.
proposed resolution 072?
I will make a motion to amend Resolution 2020-072 under number 1 to include in the sentence, all county employees deemed non-essential by the row officer or department head, comma, and court personnel pending the approval of President Judge Dominic Motto.
I'll second that, but I would request that as soon as the deputy solicitor
Right.
re-enters the building, we run that past her. But I am very comfortable with that, considering particularly what Mr. Acabone just had to say.
Yes.
And then that scenario, let's also expand it to point 3, where it says the same thing, but for that
So
second.
for the second one,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Okay,
You came in just at the right time, Mike.
yes, that was.
No idea. 'Cause I was thinking, oh my God, because I didn't know what was going on in the public meeting. I thought, because everybody interpreted it, the district judges.
Right,
And I said,
okay.
and we were talking about this morning. I just wanted to make sure,
Okay,
you know,
sure.
we were at least all on the same page.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there would be 2 amendments then, number 1 and number 3,
Just be one
Same thing.
formal amendment with the 2.
numbers 1 and 3 to include. Okay, good,
We'll wait here.
okay.
Sorry, I was trying to get an answer from our county solicitor who is at home.
Give a minute, just so we don't have to run
Sure.
into, 50,
Absolutely.
we're not juggling resolutions and
Right.
discussions and ordinance points.
Well, I'm not, okay, hang on one sec. That's an interesting question, and thank you for bringing it up. I'm not sure that during this meeting, we're gonna be able to provide you with that information. Should it be determined that the court is not covered by this resolution, we can ask the court to take its own step. Or if we determine that we need more specific language to cover the court, we can resolve this next week as well. But I'm not sure that I have that.
I talked to Judge Motto
Answer.
prior to coming. I mean, I talked to him this morning. He's okay with following whatever the commissioners want to do. We're just thinking about putting some language in there with his approval. And then this
Amending the
way,
resolution.
and then this way he could just even send something down and say,
Yes.
yes, I agree. And
I mean,
so-
there are certain instances where the court has more authority over the people that are under the control and direction of the present judge than, the county commissioners who represent the county that they're employed by. And I'm sure if Judge Motto
He's okay with
is
it.
indicating
Yeah.
that he would like to have anyone who would be answering to him under that authority be subject to these policies as well. I don't see any reason why you can't amend the resolution that's on the table.
Carrie, here's what we did. Loretta made a motion, seconded by Dan, that adds the language to part 1 and part 3, where it goes, all county employees deemed non-essential by the row officer or department head and court, and court personnel pending the approval of President Judge Dominic Motto. Policy.
Does that work for you, John? No. Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second on an amendment to proposed resolution 2020-072. I believe just based on Robert's rules, we need a roll call vote. So Vanessa, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes,
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The proposed resolution is amended.
and you're gonna bring it up for a final
Final
vote
vote.
later in the meeting, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Up next, we have new business resolution for discussion and possible approval of DSSC Solutions Company maintenance agreement for the Lawrence County Domestic Relations Department fax machine. It's a pretty routine ordinance or a routine resolution. We're just providing for a maintenance agreement for a fax machine at domestic relations. So is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, the only comment I'll make is under normal circumstances, we would have asked Ms. Romiak to join us today to offer any background or explanation. I would suggest we waive that requirement
Yes.
in light of the circumstances. This is very routine, and I would certainly have no objection to it.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Same thing, no problem.
Awesome. We'll make that resolution 2020-073. And then the last thing, and this is just going to be done, the roll call vote doesn't require a resolution since it's only an administrative transfer. But the controller's office is requesting that we transfer $150 from controller contingency fund to association dues. I'm guessing that for whatever reason, the Controllers Association increased their dues for the year.
That's what they did, right there.
Right there, yeah, it says on the thing. The Pennsylvania State Association of County Controllers, which I'm assuming that's PSACC, raised dues for 2020 by $150. And that's just an administrative transfer that will not be taken by a formal resolution, just be taken by a motion or roll call vote. That being said, I will take a motion to amend the agenda to account for to allow for voting for resolutions 2020-071 through 2020-073, as well as our controller's request for transfer of funds.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. We have, and we'll run through these expeditiously. Resolution 2020-071. Now therefore, the Commissioners of Lawrence County have determined that employees, including administration, corrections officers, office staff, and all their personnel of Lawrence County Jail are necessary for the operation of the facility. Now therefore, the County of Lawrence hereby opts out of the additional paid sick leave provisions of the FFCRA pursuant to the regulations established by the Secretary of Labor. Now therefore, the Commissioners of Lawrence County have determined the employees, including administration, office staff, and all other personnel previously determined to be essential employees by the Director of Public Safety, the Director of Mental Health Developmental Services, and the Director of Lawrence County Children and Youth Services are necessary for the continuation of essential emergency services, and therefore the County of Lawrence hereby opts out of the additional paid sick leave provisions of the FFCRA pursuant to the regulations as established by the Secretary of Labor. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Hearing a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution 2020-072. I already read all the policies, so I'm not going to read them again. But this is the resolution relating to all the policies that we have put in place for our county employees, employees of the row officers, and employees, of course, pending the approval of President Judge as they relate to COVID-19 furloughs and layoffs. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
I'll move.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution 2020-073, now therefore be resolved by Lawrence County Board of Commissioners, the DSSC Solutions Company, 1480 Dormont Avenue, Pittsburgh, PA 15216, provide a maintenance agreement for the Lawrence County Domestic Relations Department fax machine. Costs will not exceed $411 for a one-year time period of May 2nd, 2020 through May 1st, 2021. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second. Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Last voting item, and again, I want to stress this is not a resolution. This will just be taken with a motion and a roll call vote. It's a request transfer for funds in the amount of $150 from Controllers Contingency to Controllers Association dues. I'll take a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second. All in favor, please, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Funds transferred. Up next, we have our first ordinance, which is ordinance 1 of 2020. And this ordinance is amending an ordinance that was passed in 2001, which is before any of the individuals sitting up here were employed by the county, regulating the conduct and order of the regular meetings of the Board of Lawrence County Commissioners. The rationale for this is that there were a number of provisions in the 2001 ordinance that were out of date that haven't been utilized in at least, I would say, over 15 years. Just to give an example, the previous ordinance technically required that the board was supposed to have caucus meetings on Thursdays. I don't think the board has had, Dan, has the board had caucus meetings as long as you've been here?
Yeah, we did the first few years and then we moved away from that.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's just not something that's been done for a very, very long time. There's a number of other smaller provisions in there. A lot of them are just technical rule issues. But this new ordinance, assuming it passes, just amends the ordinance, modernizes it to the county's modern day proceedings. And I think it more holistically encompasses the direction that we've moved in this county relating to commissioners' meetings. But I will read aloud the ordinance, just for posterity's sake. An ordinance 1 of 2020, an ordinance amending sections 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 16 of ordinance number 113 of 2001, setting forth the rules of conduct and order of regular, and I just amended it, meetings of the Board of Lawrence County Commissioners. Section A, Section 1, regular meetings is revised as follows. Regular meetings of the Board of Commissioners shall be held every Tuesday beginning at 10 a.m. unless otherwise advertised. However, when the day for any regular meeting of the County Commissioners falls on a designated holiday, such regular meeting shall be canceled. The County Commissioners may, however, upon a majority vote of the whole board, reschedule a regular meeting at its convenience. B, Section 2, caucus working meetings is rescinded in its entirety. C, Section 4, place of meetings is revised as follows. All regular and special meetings of the County Commissioners, except in the case of emergencies, shall be held in the Commissioners' meeting room at the Government Center, except when meeting is scheduled in another location of the county. The County Commissioners may, on occasion, schedule regular or special meetings in other locations within Lawrence County. I'll note that, we haven't done that so far this year just because we haven't really had time to pull together a different slate of locations. The Commissioners, at least under the previous board, I think it's a tradition that all three of us wish to continue, have meetings at the last Tuesday of the month at a location outside the courthouse while still in the county. So that gives other residents who might not otherwise attend the ability to attend, and it gives us the ability to go out to the county and meet and interact with other officials, other residents, who again we might not see otherwise. D, Section 5, meetings open to the public is revised as follows. All regular and special meetings of the County Commissioners shall be open to the public and advertised in accordance with the Sunshine Law. E, Section 8, introduction and enactment of ordinance generally is revised as follows. Subparagraph E is rescinded, subparagraph F is rescinded, subparagraph G is rescinded, subparagraph I is rescinded. F, Section 9, form of ordinances and resolutions is revised as follows. Proposed ordinances shall be introduced to the Board of Commissioners as Commissioners' bills in the form as prescribed by the county solicitor, and they shall be numbered serially for the calendar year. All resolutions passed by the board shall be submitted in the form as prescribed by the county solicitor, and they shall be numbered serially for the calendar year. Section 10, voting is revised as follows. The vote upon every resolution or ordinance shall be taken by roll call, and the yeas and nays shall be entered into the minutes. Each member of the Board of Commissioners shall vote on every matter presented to the board unless specifically excused or prevented therefrom by provisions of general law. Unless a member of the board is excused or prevented from voting, his failure to vote shall be recorded as no vote because the majority of quorum must vote affirmatively in order for a question to pass. H, Section 11, Journal of Proceedings, minutes of meetings is revised as following. The Board of Commissioners shall keep a journal of its proceedings, which shall be in the possession of the office of the chief clerk. Upon every vote, the yeas and nays shall be called and reported by the chief clerk or his or her designee. Every motion, resolution, or ordinance shall be reduced to writing before the vote is taken thereon. No member in attendance shall withhold his vote on any measure or bill or question unless the Board of Commissioners excuses him or her and enters the reason upon the journal. Section 12, agenda is revised as follows. All reports, communications, ordinances, resolutions, contract documents, petitions, or other matters to be submitted to the Board of Commissioners shall be filed in the office of the chief clerk no later than Friday at 12 p.m. in order to be considered for placement on the agenda for the regular meeting. In the case of a special or rescheduled meeting, said items must be filed no later than 12 p.m. 2 full business days in advance of the special or rescheduled meeting. Documents and matters not received by the deadline will not be considered for the meeting. In the case of emergencies, the county commissioner may elect to waive this requirement at the discretion of the chairman. The office of the chief clerk shall promptly arrange an agenda of such matters according to the order of business. The office of the chief clerk shall furnish each member of the board of commissioners, the solicitor, and all department heads and row officers with a copy of the same delivered the day before the meeting. Section J13, order of business is revised as follows. The order of business of the Board of Commissioners meeting shall be as follows. I just listed an agenda that I'm not going to read. K, Section 14, meeting packet is revised as follows. The office of chief clerk is working with the chair of the Board of Commissioners shall be responsible for the preparation of the meeting packet. Each packet shall contain a minimum copy of all correspondence, minutes of previous meetings, resolutions, and ordinances. Each commissioner shall receive a complete packet the day before the meeting. Section 16, permanent standing committee is rescinded. M, in all other regards, the provision of the ordinance 113 of 2001 shall remain in full force and effect. N, all ordinances or parts of ordinances conflicting with any provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed insofar as the same affects this ordinance. I will take, based on the law, we have to move to table this resolution until next meeting, where it will then be voted upon, pending any amendments the board might have to it. Is there any discussion?
Before you table, would you allow for that questions or discussion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But I would defer to my colleague first. I went first the last
Right.
time, but if you'd like to go first.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I do have a question.
Sure.
And I'll pose it to the solicitor, if you don't mind. And I apologize to all of you. I should have brought this up in advance of the meeting. It's fairly minor. But under Section A on the first page regarding the regular meetings, you're noting appropriately that if a meeting date falls on a designated holiday, the meeting will not take place. And that's been the tradition. The other tradition, and it's not noted in here, but the tradition has been that, and this happens 3 times a year, that when the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania holds its spring, summer, and fall conferences, at the beginning of the year, we've essentially not held meetings on those 3 days because usually 1 or 2 or all 3 of us are at those conferences.
Right.
Does that need to be noted in here that the Board of Commissioners will not meet during a time that the State County Commissioners Association is holding their spring, summer, and fall conferences?
It certainly is permissible and there's nothing to prevent you from including that additional sentence if you want to make it clear.
I'd like to, but I would defer to my colleagues if they'd like to enter in on that.
I'm all for that. The only other thing that Loretta and Joe just mentioned,
Right.
election day.
Election day. Do we put
Yes.
that in there as well?
Because those are always on Tuesdays.
Yes.
Well, in that case, I will take a motion, and you can word it however either one of you likes, to amend Section 1 to include elections, primary and general election days, and conferences of CCAP.
I think you just stated it the way it needs to be stated. So you want a motion to that effect? I'll so move.
There we go.
That's, that makes sense.
In second,
Primary and
primary and general.
general election. I'll second that.
Second.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes?
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The ordinance is amended as per that resolution. But that being said, I will now take a motion to table ordinance 1 of 2020.
So moved.
Second?
Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Vanessa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Spielvogel,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do want to thank the two of you and Mr. Vanasco and both attorneys Leslie and Flannery for all the work they've put into this.
And they have,
Really appreciate, well, you all have, so thank you very much.
we all have.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if you can just note for the record that this was advertised in Saturday's edition on April 11, 2020 of Newcastle News for the minutes for the next meeting.
So noted.
Thank you.
All right, announcements. The next regular commissioners meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Tuesday, April 21st in this room.
And along those lines, if I'm in order, I do want to note, and I had mentioned this to you each personally, next Tuesday at 10, as of now, there is a meeting of the State County Commissioners Association Board of Directors, and I happen to sit on that board, and we're going to do a Zoom type of a meeting. Assuming the two of you are able to be here next Tuesday, I'm going to ask to be excused from this meeting. I'll be one floor above, but with the understanding that if for some reason one of you cannot be here, I'll forego that meeting and come down here. That's okay with the two of you.
I have absolutely no issue. Do we need to take a vote to excuse? I don't think we need to take a vote to
No.
excuse.
No.
We're not going to take a vote to
No
excuse.
problem.
No issue. I figure that's.
But I appreciate that.
Yes,
And
sure.
again, if for some reason one of you can't be here, I'll come down.
Mhm.
But thank you for allowing me that. I
Absolutely. Now,
appreciate it.
you're prepared for that Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Okay, just
Yes.
check.
If I need help, I'll knock on your door.
And I'll refer you to Morgan.
And we'll call Rick.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's phenomenal. I think that's a testament to Dan, you're sitting on that board. I think
Right.
promotes Lawrence County to a standing, at the state level that allows us to bring the issues that we face here to the State County Commissioners
Yes.
Association. And we thank you for your service on
Yes,
that board.
Thank you.
definitely. Yes.
Thank you.
Public comments. I checked 2 seconds ago. We had none.
Okay.
We'll refresh. No, we have none.
Okay,
I will take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second, hearing a motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, Lawrence County Board of Commissioners adjourned.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, we appreciate that. Okay, Good.
Good meeting.
yes.
I thought so.
And I guess we're gonna meet with Ed and Allison sometime tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Okay, that's
Right.
And that's
10:30 tomorrow.
9:30.
9:30.
Works for me.
It's good, man.
Oh, we're meeting with Tish now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
11.
Okay,
Oh, I thought that was just you with Tish.
I'm sorry.
If you want, it's for anyone who's interested in tax space.
Yeah, because when she called earlier, I thought it was just for Morgan.
oh, okay, that's good.
Okay, tell you what, get started now.
Yes, okay,
All right?
great.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn off the live stream.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right, I think we're okay with that. And I do need